good at it.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Christmas week meeting, which we can't quite figure out why we're meeting on Christmas week, but we are, and you're all here, which is great. And we'll move on. We've been in exec session. We exited exec session just like it kind of set up there, and we did the pledge. And was there any personnel modifications?
No, not aware of any modifications.
The agenda is as published, and so we'll move on. And modifications and public comment period. And Chris, you probably have some names there.
I do. And I know everyone was instructed that we're going slightly out of order. So Jeff Manwaring and guests.
All right. I have three of our coaches, if they come in. Joubert, Rich Bernstein, and Mike Armstead.
Very good.
We have a little
We like coaches.
presentation this evening. ESPN Ithaca, Jeremy Menard, and Earhart Energy. They give an award to athletes throughout the fall season, and they're here to present an award to 5 of our athletes. Ithaca was fortunate enough, and could I have our athletes come on up here?
That would be great.
We have 5 athletes.
We like athletes, Jeff.
And they were selected by ESPN Ithaca and Earhart Energy as recipients of their Fueling Excellence program. So, Jeremy, if you would go ahead.
It's a packed house.
Tell them a little bit about the award.
So I'm with ESPN Ithaca, and we run a program throughout the high school year in which every Tuesday we recognize a male and a female athlete of the week from our local listening area. And Ithaca, outstanding. Throughout the fall we had a lot of representatives from the soccer teams and the other teams around. And what we do with the program, after recognizing them, I get on the phone with these guys, a phone interview, which is aired during my afternoon talk show, Between the Lines. Nice little plug there. You can listen to it on the station. And we get in touch with Earhart, and we set these meetings up so we can come to the schools, shake hands with the athletes, and I get to meet them in person, which is a lot of fun, and then talk to you guys about their accolades. So I do want to do that real quick, recognize the athletes tonight. We're going to start with Tristan Cornell Roberts, right here. And his accolades go back to October 6th, in which he had 4 goals, 3 assists, and a pair of wins over Horseheads and Union Endicott. And then I'd also like to recognize Pierre Clavel, who's also up here with us. He scored a hat trick in Ithaca's 7-0 win over Vestal, and that allowed Ithaca to win its 2nd straight stack soccer championship. That was back on October 27th. Going to the 10th of November, we'd like to recognize Kevin Clavin, the goalie for the Ithaca High boys soccer team, in which he made 7 saves in the game, but the 2 most important of those saves were on penalty kicks in extra time, pushing the team through to the semifinals in the state tournament. Jake Avery of the cross country team, recognize him as well. He finished 22nd at the State Federation Cross Country Championships with a 5K course time of 16 minutes and 32 seconds. Cross-country runners are always the most impressive to me because I'm slower than molasses, so that's impressive to me that he's able to do that. And then finally, Annika Browning of the girls' swim team, recognizing her as well, placed 3rd in the 500-yard freestyle, 6th in the 200-yard freestyle, and helped the 200-yard relay team to a 5th place finish at the New York State Championship. So like a round of applause for And I missed one of our athletes as well. Last name? Sorry? Alex Patz, also recognized this year. I don't have the printout, but I'm sure it was outstanding. That's how it goes. So we'll be recognizing them with PSP Unlimited is donating T-shirts, which will present each one of them with a Feeling Excellence T-shirt, and Earhart Energy with a sweatshirt. You want to say something, JT?
I just want to say that, you know, Earhart Energy is really excited to be teamed up with ESPN again this year to recognize some awesome accomplishments on the field of play. And we're just really glad to be here tonight, and congratulations to the athletes. Really awesome job this year.
You get a quick picture, and then we'll let you guys do your thing. We'll get out of here.
Also, the donation to the Booster Club.
Yes.
In their name. If you, we have Sherry from the Booster Club. It's
Here's a check for $250 for.
Get a quick picture.
Someone's got to do the photo op.
My phone someone.
Yeah.
I look for it. Can I give it to you because you're straightforward? Thanks.
Glad we're so quiet for the picture. But, not the only one taking pictures, guys, so that's great.
Nice socks.
All right, cool. Thanks,
We're doing a little bit of a shift. Thanks to ESPN Radio, great year for Ithaca High soccer. Girls swimming is always strong, another great year. Cross country consistently scores very highly at Stacks and in the States. And Chris.
Great. Gould Coleman.
yes.
Hello, sir.
Good evening. Would you like to have me sit here?
It's up to you. You can stand, you can sit, Gould, but go right ahead. We're ready to hear from you.
Well, I'm Gould Coleman, Vice President of the Danby Community Council, and with me is Allison Christian, who is President. We seem to have only one chair here. So shall I start out, and then I'll turn the... Sure. All right.
Feel free. And we can grab another chair.
Okay, that'd be even
Right
better.
there, it's right behind you.
Oh, boy, now
Oh, no, we've got it, we've got it.
Yeah, now we're all set, now we're all good. Okay, our concern here this evening is it's a matter of equity, basically. We have our eye, we being the Danby Community Council, on the use of a building which is now not serving the community to the extent that it might. We have a school building. We don't have a school, and there has not been a school there for many years, as you know.
Sure.
But that building has a gymnasium, which would be of considerable use to the youth of Danby, particularly during the winter time. You may or may not know that during the 1960s, when we had a building boom and many schools, elementary schools were constructed, that Caroline and Enfield had been designated by the board to receive schools, but Danby had not. And so a number of people, particularly led by George Clarkson, who was the minister of our church there, raised the question of equity. Why should not Danby have a school? But the decision was a bit premature, and it turned out we did not have, at that time, the student population that would justify its existence. And so the school was closed. Now, then it was used for administrative offices by the district for a number of years. Then, now, it is used by the Family Reading Partnership, about 5 rooms, making excellent use of that space, in my judgment. And then, by the facilities management of the board of the district. we have our eye on the gymnasium. And so our purpose here tonight is to give you a heads up as to our intention. And ask you to designate someone whom we can work with initially to get a tour of the building and to see if it's really feasible to realize our intentions. Again, a matter of equity is relevant because we're paying taxes in Danby, school taxes, like all the other districts, but we're getting less service. And so, Allison, you want to explain how our youth program is going these days and
Sure.
how that would fit in?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of our challenges as a community without a school is that our kids are in 3 different districts. So it's really hard for DMV kids to get together, to know each other, to have a sense of, it really affects the sense of community in our town. So I serve on the community council with Gould, and we do oversee some youth programming through Rural Youth Services, which you're probably familiar with.
Sure.
But we're certainly looking to expand our opportunities, and space is certainly, access to space is a big issue as well. We have a town hall, which is quite a busy place for those kinds of affairs. And so obviously there's this wonderful building sitting in our community, not really being optimized. So yeah, that's why we're here, to see what the options might be.
Very good. And we can respond to that in a few minutes. If that's the end of your statements, then we'll hang out for a minute and then we'll respond and we can answer some of your questions and go from there.
Okay.
Very good. Board responses are after the public comment session. So,
okay.
So hang out for a bit and then we'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Right.
Scott Taylor.
Hello.
Oh, there's standing right there.
Yes, right in front of you. For those of you who don't know, I'm the president of the Employees Association. We have here tonight, I was just looking, I think, a slice of every department in our association. So I just want to say a few things really quickly. We feel that the district over the last bunch of years really has invested in technology, has invested in infrastructure. So we were looking to have the board invest in our employees. We pretty much hold it all together. So that's what we're asking for. I'd also like to make the point that most of our members don't live in Ithaca. Some don't even close to Ithaca, and they've all shown up here tonight. So they feel that it's pretty important to them that we move in a positive direction from here on out. And I'd just like to finish saying that if the board has any questions or comments, feel free to contact me. I'm available anytime. That's it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Adam Piasecki.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm a teacher in the district and the current president of the Ithaca Teachers Association. The last board meeting, there was a group of teachers here who spoke, and you heard their side as to what was happening to us as teachers. On behalf of all the members of ITA, we are here in solidarity to support the SRPs. We know that educating the child in the community isn't just the teachers. It's not just the administration, it is every SRP that dedicates every waking minute of their workday to doing what's best for the child. Bus, food, making sure the buildings are safe and clean. These are the people who deserve respect. Doing a quick tally of just how many people are in this situation. you have a very small slice of employees of the Ithaca City School District that are not in this situation. You're talking to roughly 1,000 employees who are without a contract. Some have been without a contract for a long time. It is time for the board, as you exit 2015, to sit back while you're doing food and gifts and whatnot, to realize the situation that you've put 1,000 people in. We are, and most of us, all of us, are exiting 2015 on a sad note. Some have exited 2014 on a sad note, 2013 on a sad note. It's time to stop exiting these years in this situation. I hope that you have a great holiday and a happy new year, and think what it is that everyone is going through. And let's hope for some speedy settlements to contracts in 2016.
Anyone else sign up, Chris?
Nope, that's it.
Anyone else wish to speak at this time? This is your opportunity. Anyone at all? Very good. We'll move on. And student reps and LECS. I did have a pick. So there you go. LECS, come on.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago, our drama program put on the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and that went well.
Yeah, so even though the winter solstice was technically yesterday, LACS is going to be celebrating it tomorrow, starting at lunch and then going into sixth period. We do this every year, and it comes together as a community and celebrating the passing of the year and reflecting on the new one. And one tradition that we do is we each take pieces of paper, two pieces each, not peaches, pieces of paper, and we write one thing on one that we like to keep and hold on to and strive for the new year, and put that in our pocket, and one thing that we want to let go of, and then we throw that one away. And then the liaison of LACS, you're welcome to join us tomorrow in Dan's family group, which is mine, and we'll be more than happy to have you and feed you and talk and celebrate together.
It's all about the food. Yeah.
So we have a service learning program at LACS. It's as a part of requirement to graduate. Every student has to do community service, and there's a number of ways people can do that. So some people in our students and staff in our community Saturday helped host, along with community members, a West Hill holiday party. So that was a smashing success. And moving forward, we'll be trying to get more community involvement in the West Hill area.
Yeah, and a few Wednesdays ago we had a QSM, which is like an all-school meeting, but it's a quarter school meeting. So we split up into four rooms, and the SRR committee, the Students for Rights and Responsibilities, hosted a discussion and fishbowl activity about homework and the pros and cons, and we had some great discussions, students and teachers alike, on how homework can be a tool and helpful as opposed to just like a burden. And yeah.
And our school's site-based council recently discussed one of the goals of our development plan, and that goal is to be a healthy and sustainable school. So we looked at practices in our school right now and compared that to our goals, and then developed action steps to moving forward and discuss the state of our school as a whole. And that's that.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Ithaca High.
Sure. So the Link crew hosted a tailgate get-together on December 18th before the boys' basketball game in the small gym. There, the underclassmen had a chance to eat food and hang out while checking out the many clubs that IHS has to offer. Then after the festivities, they attended the game to cheer on our team and join in on school spirit. And then this January, the Link crew will host its annual Cookies and Cram for the freshmen to prepare them for their midterm exams and the end of the second marking period. Teachers and seniors will stay after school and help them go over any questions that they might have for their classes. And of course, there will be cookies and cocoa. Dr. Mason Peck, an aerospace engineer from Cornell, gave a lecture last Thursday in H Courtyard for any student to come and sit in on about subjects as complicated as rocket science, and to invite IHS in entering NASA's Build Your Own Spaceship competition, where the winning school's design will actually be built and launched.
So last Friday we had the annual crafts fair in the activities building in IHS. So pubs came to sell many different types of food, and arts and crafts. Students could grab a bite to eat, teachers come in, everyone could maybe get a last-minute gift for a loved one, enjoy some food, relax during the free periods. Just yesterday, with a $1,500 grant from IPEI and the wonderful organization of Mr. Rife and many other teachers, approximately 300 students went downtown to Cinemapolis in both morning and afternoon showings to see the new film adaptation of Macbeth. And that was a fresh new take on Shakespeare's everlasting classic. I think everyone enjoyed it. It prompted many discussions of history and film adaptations and cinematography, so it's really a wonderful time. And I'm sure everyone would like to thank Mr. Rife and the many teachers for making that work.
And in the music department, last Wednesday, the annual December choir concert took place, and the beautiful voices of the choir filled Culp Auditorium, definitely earning themselves rave reviews from the audience who attended. And also, on Sunday the 13th, the Winter Band Concert was very successful. They had a very impressive repertoire ranging from band classics to one piece incorporating electronica, and a finale with alumni, which provided camaraderie and cookies. And tomorrow is the final day to hand in non-perishable food items for Linker's annual food drive, and students have been able to drop off their donations in various boxes all over the school. So far, over 1,000 items have been donated, and the liaison office has organized staff of volunteers who have made and delivered these meal baskets to families of the high school and in the local community in need, and the rest of the cans are donated to local food programs. And that is all we have for you this evening.
Great, thanks guys, thanks Ithaca High. Now, board responses. Anyone wish to jump in? Sean, go ahead.
Sure, I can respond to the good folks from Danby asking about the possibility. I serve on the facilities committee. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation there. It'd probably be a better appropriate forum so we can actually have an engagement. If you contact me, I'd be happy to set up a possibility. The building is in various states of, how do I say this? It would need some work to have students there, but we can have a conversation. So how about you email me, we'll set up a time to meet, we'll get you hooked up with some folks who will walk through the building and have a further conversation about what's possible. Does that seem best?
Yeah.
That
So
sounds great.
SeanBradwell@gmail.com, or give me a phone call and we'll make it happen.
Good, thank you.
Other comments?
Well, I'm going to say I had the great pleasure of seeing the LACS production of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. I smiled all the way through. And I may be a little prejudiced since my daughter was the faculty producer of the show.
Okay.
And the night we saw it, she recruited her father, or drafted him actually, he didn't have a choice, to be one of the cameo appearances in the show, and which was more delightful. And there's pictures on Facebook. But it was a great, great production, and I know, like with all your productions, it was, though there was faculty support for it, the students do a lot of it, and it was delightful.
Other comments?
I would just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think it's wonderful to see all of you here. My father was the president of Ironworkers Union for many years, and I remember being dragged to places like this as a little kid. So I really respect your work, and I respect you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. So thank you for coming and speaking to us. It's a big deal to me. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'll just add a few things. As a past board member of the Enfield Community Council, and fully realize how important Enfield School is to really the youth programs and the after-school programs and the summer day camp that runs through Enfield. Really, without the property, without the use of the buildings, at certain periods of the history, this town hall in Enfield was really not appropriate for kids. So we want to be able to accommodate all the community councils however we can, because we're talking about the same kids. We deal with them, all the kids, and you're dealing with the kids in Danby. We do like to point out to the community that there are a lot of kids in Danby and Wilseyville that come to downtown to school, in Enfield and Caroline, and out in the surrounding areas that need to feel that they are a part of our district as well, and a part of what we can provide for them, not only during the school day, but after and during the summer. And there's a lot of programming that goes on during the summer and with that the district is involved with. So we certainly work with Sean. Amanda Verba is our business official, and so certainly she and Paul Alexander, our chief of buildings and grounds, they're very. There'll be people that you'll be working with through Sean. So feel free to do that and pursue whatever we can work out. Regarding negotiations, we would love to be able to be complete with all our negotiations. We don't actively sit on them, just to be clear, but we've heard really very good things about the negotiations, Scott, with the process, and we really hope that we can finish that up soon. And we would like to move on and really be able to show all the 1,000 and all our staff how much the community appreciates all that you do. And we represent the community, obviously, but negotiations are two-way. So it's a process that has to go through. But we're certainly looking forward to completing those processes and moving on for the future and for the next round of negotiations. So we'll start fairly soon, Scott, probably.
Yeah.
But so we certainly appreciate everything you do. Appreciate you coming tonight. Appreciate that there wasn't a lot of snow to plow today, and a little easier perhaps. But the weather's the weather, and you all deal with it in basically every day, and inside and outside, and driving the kids every day. So we don't think we don't appreciate what you do, because we do, and we talk about it all the time, and we just want to make sure that you know that we hear you, and probably, Dr. Brown, I'm going to stop responding for the board at this point. Anything else from anyone? Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Scott. And actually, I really appreciate you offering dialogue, and if we had any questions, to reach out to you, because I'm sure no one intended to misspeak when they said that it's a board decision, but this is a negotiation, so we don't just make a decision and things magically happen. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come out tonight. Thank you.
And I guess the last thing, really was able to attend 3 or 4 great performances, the band, the orchestra, choir, really tremendous amount of kids involved. The stage was packed to the gills every time, and it was a really great opportunity to see what the kids produce. Also had the opportunity to do a learning walk out at Enfield, which was really a great opportunity for me to tag along, learn how to walk a little bit, tag along with the new instructional. Dr. Brown, help me out.
Professional leadership team.
There, right. But it's a way for teachers to observe what other teachers are doing, and have that opportunity to provide feedback. I tagged along. I had asked second graders, are you smarter than a second grader? Well, probably not these days. So, so what are you doing? And can you tell me what's that again? And so, it's good to have second graders named Hannah explain what the project was for the day to old people like me. So it's always a great opportunity to see teachers in action, see kids in action at our schools, and see really a very clean, bright Enfield school. That's my home school. So it's just really it's always nice to get out, and we have the opportunity to do that fairly often, if we can have time to do that. So, Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to second that, because I also got a chance to see that, and that was really fantastic. And I also just wanted to say that I also really enjoyed the presentation of the invasive species that the several elementary school students did today, and that was really also quite wonderful to look at. So.
Thanks, Ann. Anything else now? We'll move on with our meeting. Thanks.
I've got a bunch of members that have to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I just want to say that if you guys want to split,
Oh, yeah.
You guys gotta get up real early.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity. We wanted to tell you how much we appreciated being here, and you don't have to stay. We're going to talk about other stuff, so. But feel free to do so.
Yeah, Dan Furlong.
Did you hear me?
One of our
You know, who knows? They're always thank you. It's not
And then there were none, but we're going to do the consent agenda while folks are doing what they do, and
I'll move the consent as presented.
second by Pat.
Speak to just one item.
Go ahead, Brett.
I see there's a gift from Triad Foundation. Thank you for that, for computer language programming at Bell Sherman.
Is that coding, or is that just computer?
It's just computer language, I don't know.
We always appreciate gifts, that's a wonderful thing. Anything else?
Question, I missed finance meeting last evening, I'm sure there was a little bit of conversation about the surplus list. There's been a couple things we've been doing lately with surplus,
Right,
but we haven't been doing it in years prior, so I'm just.
Yeah, we decided to adopt a process of actually disposing of things. Some of these have been accumulating.
Yep.
Truthfully, we got very little money for the first bunches because we should have done it in the last couple of years. So now we're being much more intentional about disposing of used items.
And we'll be putting these out in the newspaper for folks to offer bids on, is that the idea?
Yep. And I think we've had, this is our third.
Our third round, right,
Yeah,
so.
third round. So we're trying to clear out some of those materials that.
Is this the stuff that are in Danby trailers?
Yeah, Danby trailers.
What kind of stuff?
It's computer stuff this time, but it's been.
These are hard drives and laptops and things like that.
Yeah, and
I'm sure they're old.
They're old, and it's been furniture that's beat up, it's, all kinds of things, but we're trying to get rid of those trailers out of Danby. Get down to zero. Be a little better neighbor than have those stored out there.
Yep, great.
So I expect you're gonna see more.
Yeah, I would assume that's one, just making sure.
Yep.
Anything else? Very good. Moved, seconded, all in favor? That's not quite everyone? Are you? Oh, okay. Okay, everybody but Chris. Chris, those opposed? Opposed, Chris.
I was gonna try to vote.
Is it really gonna pop up on the screen there?
I was gonna try to.
We're having
vote,
some
but-
difficulty with the operating system on some of the laptops. We need to update them, so I'm gonna mark the vote.
Yeah, I know. I'm not particular, I'm just asking.
Or just like to see new
I am
choice?
particular, but I love this.
I didn't do it right.
Got it.
What I miss?
You?
Oh.
There you go.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Wait, didn't do it yet. Hang on.
But it's, I think motion carried, so I think we'll move on, and while that's being done, and Dr. Brown.
We're all
I
set,
think-
right? I don't know why it's showing.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. I'm super excited about the presentation everybody here in a minute, so I'm gonna be very brief. And actually defer my time to Jennifer. She's gonna walk through for the community and folks in attendance some highlights about this new online tool that's right above my head, which we'll be moving to that side of the screen for future meetings, but tonight it's right here. So Jennifer, you wanna talk a bit about what we're doing right now and what people can look forward to?
While this projector is warming up, I'm going to show you online really quickly. So this is what we call the scoreboard. If you've noticed through the evening, the agenda, as we move through the agenda, it highlights where we are on the agenda without particular detail, but what the item is as we go through it. What you just witnessed is we're going to eventually get to a point where we're able to vote, and then they can enter their own vote. We're still working on making sure our technology has the correct operating systems to function properly for that right now, so I'm able to enter the vote. So you will see that on the scoreboard as we go through. again, as Dr. Brown said, we're gonna end up moving it to the other side. I know it's pretty hard to see in the back right now. We're working on the right size font. This is a work in progress, so we're still working on that. What I've got pulled up here right now on the screen on the Eno board is where the public can access the information for the board meetings. I am not able to log out right now, so when I go here, you're gonna actually see my page, because I'm in the middle of the meeting. So you would go to the district website. On the district website, you would go to the board homepage, which is where we're at right here. On the very far side, you're gonna see a link that says Board Docs right here. You would click on that. That'll take everyone to the public access site. You don't have to have a login or a password. This is all public information. You'll be able to access it through there. In the past, you've been able to go to the video, watch the video online here. It's still in the same place. You also have links that take you to archive meetings, which have the minutes and the agendas and all the attached items. You also have our meeting schedules, and you've been directed towards these in the past. This is all still on the website. What you're going to find different with Board Docs is from the beginning of December forward, I'm going to be recording the minutes in Board Docs. You'll see a few fewer tabs than what you have here because I'm logged in right now and I'm the master controller of the program at the moment. But you will have the option of active meetings. You won't see draft, you won't see templates, but you'll be able to click on active meetings and you'll be able to click on any of them that are available to be viewed or have been released, whether it's an agenda, will be released to the public prior to the committee meeting or the board meeting. After the board meeting, I also release the minutes after they're approved by the board president to the public as well. It's usually within about 3 or 4 days they'll be available. Those minutes are also going to be attached to a cropped video, so each one of the agenda items will actually be linked to the video portion of the meeting, so you'll be able to watch just the portion that you're most interested in. So for instance, this evening we had the public session, we had the students up here. If you wanted to just see that part and share it, you'd be able to go on there, click on that part, and just see that part of the meeting and not have to dredge through the whole meeting for the whole thing. You also are going to have access to, and again, you're seeing things that you wouldn't normally see, but Sean will appreciate this. You're going to see policies which are currently in the process of being populated. So we're migrating our policies over right now. You won't see them at the moment because they're not available, but when the time comes, you'll be able to go into the policy section. You'll be able to pull up policies by number. You can also do a search. You'll be able to pull up the policy, and then you're going to see the policy over here and be able to read it. You can share it. You can print it. You won't have a little pencil to edit it, obviously, but you would be able to click on here, share, and you could send it by email, or you could send it however you wanted to by whatever means you chose. We also have a library, so there will be some events will be listed here, so this is where I'm keeping the meeting schedules. You also have information on our board members, so Mr. Ainsley, I'll pull you up. It's in here for his information is available. You're also going to find our strategic goals that have been set by the board. So we have what our board calls our board priorities. The system calls it a strategic goal, but they are listed here, and each one, and we'll be able to track those when we figure out a good metric to measure that up to our board meetings and our minutes and stuff. So that's a quick, fast overview.
Please show both the video aspect from the minutes, so
sure.
Explain how you can look at a certain part of the meeting.
We go to the meeting where we have it in there.
The student part is usually the best.
So I do have the
skip the
previous
rest,
meeting,
right?
the December 8th meeting, so you'll see in here. I may not be able to right now because I'm in the middle of another meeting. It's only the problem, Dr. Brown, because I'm logged in to run this meeting.
Okay.
It may not let me right now because I'm...
So instead of looking at the entire meeting as we've done for years now, you can click on the agenda item to see that portion of the meeting, that video clip of the meeting, which is a cool feature.
Rather than trying to kind of gauge its search and...
I don't think it's going to let me because I'm logged in for this meeting.
Rob said something dumb about halfway through, right? And you try to go, yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be useful, Dr. Brown.
Very. Just a little update about board docs and how we're working. Thank you, Ms.
And Jennifer will eventually be completed with the migration because Jennifer has like an election to deal with after the first of the year. So
I have a deadline.
to that point, we are trying to get the migration complete in in good order, because we really don't want this process to drag on too long. There are other things that we need to be dealing with, but we'll just keep working at it. If I can't really log in tonight, but for some reason that will be fixed and it'll be fine. I have a paper agenda and I'm good. And it's really the dialogue and the conversation that I like rather than staring at a computer anyway. And Dr. Brown, speaking of staring at a computer, you have, for school district business, we're going to start out with some of our tech folks, aren't we?
Yes. Friends, come on up.
Digital media.
Okay, Lily's going to frame it a little bit.
So I'm just going to frame what these are amazing amendments and speak to you about our technology and a couple of different classes at the high school. And I think you're going to show it.
Yes. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board and the community ultimately. My name is Ian Cryway. I'm a technology teacher here at Ithaca High School. I'm here with some colleagues, Scott Riegel, Technology and Education Department Leader, Mike Reif, English teacher, and John Shine, our newest addition to the Technology and Engineering Department at Ithaca High School. As Liddy mentioned, we're here to talk about the digital media program we have that operates within the Technology and Engineering Department at Ithaca High School. In a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. About that program, there were significant staffing changes between last year and this, and I think all of us can agree there was some concern about what would happen with the program. I'm here to say that it's all good news that we're bringing to you. Very good things have happened that each of us will highlight different pieces. So the first thing I want to talk about are the 4 different classes that are offered within the digital media program, 2 of which I teach, Digital Media 1 and Digital Media 2. Each is a semester-long course designed to be introductory, and obviously the Digital Media 1 would be a precursor to Digital Media 2. Digital 1 is an introductory class, and it's an overview of all things that is digital media, just like the name suggests. The students learn skills in terms of web development, where they produce an online digital portfolio of all of their work. They explore digital still image capture and manipulation using Adobe Photoshop, which is an industry standard program that has so many uses beyond just the classroom. Video recording using in Digital Media 1, just iPods, because the ability, they're very portable. Kids are familiar with the interface just because a lot of their friends have them if they don't. Editing software, Adobe Premiere, which again is an industry standard software, and skills learned there can be easily transferred to other video editing bases if need be. And then sound techniques that go along with video, such as voiceovers and Foley. And if you're not familiar with Foley techniques, that's the practice of creating sound effects behind the scenes, then adding them in post-production. So snapping lettuce to simulate a leg breaking or something, if you've ever seen a bad Kung Fu movie. Digital Media 2 is a continuation of the skills and knowledge from Digital 1, and it's the students will be introduced to advanced cameras, lighting, and studio techniques. They get into the more expensive and more complicated cameras and learn skills that can be used to create more interesting video. Ultimately, that's the goal. More extensive productions are explored, 60-minute style interviews, biographies, documentary, and promotional videos, with emphasis on communicating a message that makes sense to other people. We also dive deeper into the capabilities of Adobe Premiere, and the students are introduced to After Effects, which is an additional program that allows the kids to create more whiz-bang type effects that they really enjoy doing to make interesting productions. And then the last component of Digital Media 2 is developing packages. So if you're familiar with the news business, a package would be a pre-recorded news segment that a local news broadcast or a national news broadcast would put together and they would cut to. So the students are required to create news packages that then go into the WRED morning announcements that Ithaca High School produces each day. So a little bit more about my goals personally. I've got 4 main goals for my students coming out of Digital Media 1 and Digital Media 2. One is a funneling tool for English digital media that Mike Reif and John Shine will talk about, which is another one of the classes within the program. And my goal is if they take Digital 1 and 2, they're going to be leaders in English digital media. They're going to essentially be TAs without the title necessarily, but be able to help the teachers and be able to help their fellow students grow in that program. Other goals are just to create students with excellent skills that they can use in high school and in other classes or clubs to promote them, or that they can use after high school or in personal jobs where they can generate income with their skills that they've learned, and then to be better prepared for college if that's the route they're taking. I want all of my students, and I think my colleagues would agree, that when they leave high school, I want them to be the most prepared students that they can be when they meet other people the same age, as then when they go to college and go to work, I want our students to be the most prepared. Say, I've already done that. Let me show you how to do it. I've been doing that for 4 years. That's ultimately my goal. One more piece before I turn it over to my colleagues here is this summer we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to spend a week. Scott and I spent a week in the studio. For me, it was basically the first time I had been in there to do anything, even though it's been there for a couple of years. So it was great for Scott and I to go through all the equipment, to, in some cases, learn what it was, get things organized, and have an opportunity to familiarize ourselves with what was in there. We were also given an opportunity to have 2 valuable trainings, one of which was in August, one of which was in early November. One was through Video and Audio Solutions, which was the company that installed the studio, and then Ross is a company that makes basically all of the hardware for any studio, whether it's Mr. Finn, it's like in theater productions as well. I mean, it's everywhere. Right? I have one. So any video truck that's on site for an award ceremony that's a national broadcast or a sporting event, anything like that, it's all stuff like that. So we had a really excellent trainer named Amber. She came in, worked with us for 2 days, and we had the opportunity to bring students in as well. And those 2 opportunities were fantastic. John and Scott and I attended those, and with that, it was great, and I was confident going in beyond that to lead the kids in and basically give them the reins to run the studio, run all the equipment, and run with it. So that's my piece. I believe Mike Reich's going to talk now about English digital media.
So I came to this program obviously 3 years ago. In fact, I spoke with you guys last year. And Dr. Brown, you're welcome back anytime. I know you popped in once in a while to do some recording with us. A bit of context. The program began, we had 14 students last year, then we ended up with about 40, and this year we have about 60. And so for the senior course that runs for an entire year, we've got about 60 students signed up, 19 in the morning, and then 2 classes back to back, about 20 each. And of course, on the English side of things, what we're always concerned about is once they pass the Regents or Common Core, whatever it's going to be called now, exam, that our senior English students have something that is challenging and enriching. And so I also teach film studies, which is a semester course, but this course I think has seen the growth because students know they're going to be getting real-world applications of their skills. And so instead of simply learning some new things about literature, a lot of the students we had last year got interested in digital journalism and ended up going to IC, which is really good, or other communication programs. They looked into SU and things like that. So for me this year, I'm trying to build on the curriculum that we've been developing. John's going to be talking about how he's been building on the technology side of things, new utilization of the technology. And I have to thank Ian and Scott as well for stepping in and really learning and utilizing and engaging with technology in a much better way, a much bigger way, which is really going to be good for the long-term stability of the program. But some things that I've been thinking about, right, throughout the year, I help the students design, write, learn how to speak and portray their texts in visual and audio form in better ways as the year goes on. But with John's help, I've sort of been thinking about also not only scripting to storytelling, how we make a script turn into something that is either an audio product, visual product, maybe something news-based, something magazine-approached. Also, we're doing a lot more in terms of daily critical analysis of not just news programs, but any kind of media product that is trying to influence them. So we start thinking about how can we maybe influence back in some ways, as well as just grapple with it better. And then this year, for the first time, we're also implementing documentaries, things like Morris's The Thin Blue Line, which grapples with truth and how to sort of engage a viewer with the slipperiness of truth. So that's about a police officer shooting in 1988, where the director doesn't present you with one set truth, even though it's a documentary. And also we just did The Imposter from 2 years ago, where we have a very subjective view. So even though the main character is a criminal, we're sort of being presented with his subjective viewpoint. And so we watch them, we analyze them, and then with John we teach the students how to do those things. How can you lead the viewer down interesting paths in terms of truth? How can you present a very subjective point of view, even if it's just something like Jimmy stole my banana and Jimmy said, no, I didn't, he gave it to me. That kind of stuff. Not to say Jimmy is involved, I just use that name. So those are sort of the 3 big stepping stones I'm growing with and developing, but this wouldn't be possible, honestly, without John working with me and also spending a lot of time in the studio and learning through trainings and things how to get the students going. So, John, what would you like to say?
Thank you. First off, I just want to start by saying how privileged I am to both be here and working with these guys. They've helped me out so much so far throughout the year. But as the technology teacher for the English digital media class, I've really been focusing on preparing the students for being able to use the variety of tools and equipment that we have in the studio, because it's quite vast. I've been spending a lot of time working with it and trying to master it to give it to the students. So I work with the students to help them turn their scripts and ideas into real technically strong and professional products that we then sometimes we'll have a movie day where we show everyone's projects throughout the day, and we critique them and really break down the technical aspects of it. I spent the first half of the year, up until right now, introducing the classes to cinematography techniques, working with Mr. Reif on that, and as well as a new piece of equipment for each project that we do. So as the new techniques and knowledge of equipment is acquired, the students then have the scaffolding to build on those new skills and really amp their projects up to the next level, make them more advanced, more technical as the semester progresses. But with the training that Ian had mentioned, it was really a tremendous help for both myself and the students, because of the fact that we were able to bring students into the training with us. 2 of which came from Ian's Digital Media 1 class, so sophomores? 2 sophomores now are, as long as they get some more practice in there, they're up there with our seniors in the grade, so they will be leaders in the class for sure with that training. As well as 2 students from our English Digital Media Lab class, so they act as sort of TAs for us. But with them and us in the class, we really have a good handle on all of the equipment. But my main goals, similar to Ian in the sense that I want my students to be ahead of the curve when they come out of Ithaca High School. I also want them to have the ability to operate every piece of equipment that we have in that studio, because issue we just had this week with a couple students being absent, we had no one to work our most important piece of equipment, but since everyone knows how to work everything, they were able to jump right in, no bumps in the road. So I also want them to have the ability to do all of that. But as Mike had mentioned, they also are acquiring many other skills, public speaking, working with the community. That's part of what we're going to be going into with the rest of the year, is getting into the community and really talking about what makes Ithaca so great. But when I work with the students who were in the training, I then worked with them to create written instructions for all of the pieces of equipment, some of our more technical, difficult to grasp pieces of equipment. So by the end of the year, we'll have a nice big binder of instructions, so anyone can just jump in there and do it. But I'm really excited to see where both myself and the program are going to be by the end of the year, because we are making both the show and the class better every week. And actually, we now have a behind-the-scenes look, which Mr. Granger was also able to see.
Enjoyed that, thank you.
Yes. So one thing, one second, yeah. One thing that we've really wanted to be able to do is to let the students run the show. So Mr. Cryway and I can sort of sit back and facilitate and make sure that we just give the students everything they need to run it. And so this is a take, it's both behind the scenes and the actual news show.
We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Uh-oh. It just was running.
So just refresh that.
Just try again later, that's what it says.
So normally we don't do the behind the scenes. This just kind of jumps back and forth. The audio's not great because of the behind the scenes shots, but you see the kids' engagement, which is pretty impressive.
We're going live in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, IHS. You are watching WRED in the morning at Gun Hill Studio. Today is Tuesday, December 22nd, and I'm Anna Danner.
And I'm Ricky Crawford. We begin today's show with the fact of the day.
Norway will be the first country to shut off FM radios and switch to digital audio.
So we have 2 students that voluntarily give up their lunch period to come in. They're our operations team. They come in during 3rd period. They set up the teleprompter. And with help of Mr. Steiner getting the script together, they also prepare the graphics on our CG computer. So that's ready to go for a 7th period class where the morning announcements are recorded.
All-day treats, hot chocolate, hot apple cider will be selling. All proceeds will go to
That's the video switcher. That's industry standard video switcher that if they go anywhere else, they're going to see something very similar and should be able to operate without much problem.
Let's create a wonderful holiday season for everyone in our local.
It's our graphics computer, so every graphic that comes up on the screen, there's a person in charge of that. It's a conscious button press and a button press to make the graphic go away. So nothing is by mistake and nothing is pre-recorded except for the graphic itself. It's our soundboard, our audio switch, levels are maintained, and the microphone is switched between the anchor, whichever one's on, and then non-active anchors are turned off.
It's the high school comic book club for K3 after school today. If you are interested but not able to make the bids this time, please stop by room K24 and leave your name and email address so we can contact you. The math team meets
It's a ClearCom communication system, so our anchors can talk to people, they can hear people in the control room, just like real television. Everyone in the control room has a monitoring system, they can talk amongst themselves, as well as the camera operators out in the studio to give
I hope
cues.
everyone stayed warm this weekend. Although it was pretty cold, I still enjoyed waking up to the snow on the ground. Unfortunately, it is going to be chilly.
Lizzie is another
and
student
rainy
that
as we get ready
voluntarily
for
comes
winter
in.
break.
She
Today,
goes up for 7th period and they have to do the weather for us. She's planning on actually joining the class formally for the 2nd semester.
I'm cautioning everyone to please drive safely this holiday season due to the unfavorable conditions and the fact that
Control room teleprompter screen that's also shown in the studio underneath, well actually in the lens of each of the cameras.
1,996 car crashes within 6 days surrounding Christmas and New Year's. Safe travels, everyone. Back to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Lizzie. In sports news, the boys JV and varsity wrestling teams will be going toe-to-toe against Vestal High School at 6 p.m. at home in the Just Bliss gym. And the boys varsity hockey team has an away game at Kennedy Arena tonight. Today's lunch will be pesto pizza with
So
a
far
side of
since
crab.
September, the young lady
My
was sitting
favorite.
at the video
Thanks for
switcher.
tuning in to
She's
WRED in
communicated
the
to John
morning.
that her
That's our
plan now
show.
is to go to
On
college
the
to
Tuesday,
become a
we'll
technical director, which is pretty neat.
Toaster strudel
So
eye
she takes that
test.
job very seriously, and it's nice to see. She's a very professional person in the studio.
Since we put her in the technical director chair, things have been running a lot smoother. She's got a real knack for this, and it really shows in this video.
It says statistically. It's snow. Alright, we're going back to you guys in 3, 2, 1, the copy.
Good.
One is snow. One snow. Cut. Yeah.
So watching it, you know, on YouTube each day where we pre-record, so we recorded this on Monday for today's news. You don't get the same vibe. I think Mr. Granger fantastic.
Yeah.
Being in there, it's a different feeling. Definite sense of urgency to get things done when they're supposed to.
They were all working hard when I was there. Very attentive, great at their jobs.
It's pretty amazing.
I think that's all we have to say. I think Scott Brady, we have a chance to talk.
There's a few goals that I have in terms of the program, and that's to actually build and maintain the program. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about, and that's just the fact that there was a very large investment that was brought in order to build the studio, and we want to thank the board and the community for giving us the opportunity to work in a facility like that. One of the things in terms of moving forward that we need to come up with and that we've identified as a team is that we need to be worried about replacement cycles so that it doesn't get down to the fact of, oh my God, we need to replace the entire studio, and come up with a plan for that. So we're going to need to work with you in order to be able to do that. Right now, we're still going through and identifying even some of the equipment. And, we're giving the keys to the car at the very end of the summer, and it's not your low-end vehicle. It's a high-end sports car. So there's some things that we're still tweaking and trying to figure out in terms of how to make it perform the best we can. Some of the things that you guys haven't necessarily seen yet is the live videos of the live streaming of some of our events. We were hoping to have that done for the pitch night this past Thursday night. Unfortunately, we just weren't able to get there, but do know that that is coming. So, you know, my role in department leaders is to try to support these guys the best way that I possibly can, through bringing back some of the college credit, through bringing in more technology credit through the English digital media class, and working with the building principal to make sure that that can happen and to be able to maximize the master schedule with that. Ultimately, the thing that I want to do is say thank you to these three gentlemen. You know, we went through a rough transition over the summer, but we were able to put the pieces back in place to be able to ultimately provide a great program for the students at Ithaca High School and for the Ithaca community. So, you know, John's here way early in the morning and stays late at night after school every single day with the students. Ian does the same thing, and they're both constantly in the classroom giving up their free periods and giving up their time to work with the kids. As well as Mike, who you know, was some of the glue that kind of kept things together for us through the transition and bringing the team together. So thank you to the three of you for all the hard work that you've put in this school year so far. And you know, we're going to continue to try to keep the trajectory up as far as the level at which students are producing the media production pieces. So one of the things that you will hopefully see by the end of the year that Brad was also a part of was our pitch night, and our plan is to try to do Kickstarter videos for our final presentations at the end of the school year, so you can kind of see all of that come together, even through the media classes and bringing other classes into our department. So,
if I can add one piece, it's kind of weird to be sitting here serving as a bit of a historian. But if I can take us back about 4.5 years ago, this conversation about this space started with us talking about our mission statement and how do we engage, educate, and empower young people differently. And we talked about learning spaces then. And the board challenged us to think about a space that wasn't being used and how we can enhance that space in low cost, but build a program. And we thought long and talked about it, and we decided to do a digital media studio. Now remember the folks who showed up in this building who were upset that we were even talking about that. And then we talked about how much it would cost us, they were even more upset. And then they started to yell at us, and we went into lease agreements at that time to do the one-time purchases, however, pay for them over the course of 4 years, which I think that final lease, Amanda, is going to come off this year. We're making our final lease payment, so this equipment is ours now. And yes, we need to talk about replacement cycle, but an investment, but a portion of our technology funds at the time, they were lease agreements, and we got about 50% of that back in state aid, which was very economical. And we were one of the first districts in the state to do that. We were featured on the Sony website and in other national publications. We had folks from the biggest media production colleges in the region come say we had a better setup than they had.
Our representative from Ross agreed, and the Audio Video Solutions representative said this is impressive, you know, better than at the college, rivals a lot of other facilities around. So this, I got around saying it's an amazing facility.
So we built a world-class space, and we also sent young people to those programs that are at the top of their class now. So from my perspective, we did what we said we would do. We engaged, educated, and empowered young people. And I'll say that space in this program is bigger than any one person. This is a community space. Yes, there was a transition from one person to many others, but what I see here are very talented educators who care about young people so much that they're enhancing and growing the program. Where last year we were excited about 40 young people being in it, to hear them say tonight we have 60 plus young people, including some who transferred from districts outside of our state to be on the screen tonight. I'm excited to volunteer instead of babysitting during their time off. So that brings much joy to my heart, and I want to thank you, gentlemen, because you didn't have to be here this summer. You didn't have to put that time in the summer. You didn't have to say yes to us, and we came to you and said, we want you to take a good program and make it excellent. And you did that. So for that, I want to thank you. And I see the young people's faces every day I walk by, and I'm excited for what you're bringing to the table. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
You have 60 students, you're taking adults?
Come in there, pop in.
Yeah.
Please come in.
I went to Broome for communications. It was back like when they were still black and white, but this is so much nicer than that was like, yeah, that's really great.
Good.
I have to stick up for Ithaca College. I don't know if they're better than Ithaca College.
That's what I was told. That's what I was told.
With that being said, I had the fortune, I do a lot of work with our Ithaca College students, and I'm in their studio pretty regularly, working with them. And I had the opportunity to be in our studio and do some recording with our students last year. And I walked away saying, Dr. Brown, if it's not better than the college, it rivals IC. It was extremely impressive to see high school students doing the same thing that my colleges are doing and paying $55,000 a year to go to school to learn. And so if you have not had a chance to sort of be a part of that studio space or be a part of one of the programs, you'll be nothing short of amazed at the professionalism, at the ways in which they're using high-tech and complex machinery. It was quite impressive. So thank you, as Dr. Brown said, for the work you're doing in teaching young folks a skill. And I want to particularly put a plug in. I'm very appreciative of hearing how much media literacy we're doing and critical media analysis, given the amount of media that our young folks consume each day, to engage them analytically about what they're consuming and how information is being packaged to them. I really appreciate that. So that's fantastic. So good work, folks.
Or go ahead.
Well, I also am impressed. Hi, guys. I do have a couple questions, though, just so I understand what it looks like. So the digital media 1 and 2, Ian, are these semester courses?
Yep, each one is a semester. This year there are 2 sections of Digital Media 1 that are running. One in the fall, it's got 16 or 17 students. And there's another one in the spring that I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. There's a Digital Media 2 running also in the spring, and that's maxed out, I believe, in terms of capacity.
And are these open to what grade levels?
Any student.
Any
Yep.
grade
The only
level?
requirement is Digital Media 1 is taken before 2.
Right, and though, is it predominantly one grade level?
No, it's a complete mix, and that's a unique thing for me to teach as a class where I've got 9th graders and seniors, mixed every which way possible, so to try to create content to deliver. And
it's challenging, but
it is quite challenging. But it's also fun, exactly.
To it.
The seniors or any student that's at a higher level, they raise the bar for everybody else, and it's really neat, and it's a fun little environment where everybody gets along pretty well, despite age differences and every difference that there is in the class.
Yeah. Now the digital English media. So this is one of the options for seniors.
Correct.
Seniors only.
Yeah.
And they're getting, and it's full year, obviously.
Yep.
And they're getting 1 credit in English and 1 credit in tech.
Currently, no. They're actually getting one credit in English, and that's something that I'm working with Mr. Trumbull on right now, is figuring out how we can actually have this offered so that the students are going to get a credit in technology as well.
How come they're not getting?
And be able to make that morph into a...
Because it's 2 periods.
It's a single period course right now.
Oh, it's a single period course.
Yes.
Oh.
So the history going back many years ago, it was a double period
right,
course.
That's
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a single period. So the 2 of you together, they're not getting any tech credit because it's only 1 period.
Right, and that's where the English Digital Media Lab class comes in, is that we
Right.
actually sectioned off so that some students, if they wanted to be able to take a double period course, they could then get the technology credit as well.
Okay, that helps a lot. And so you've got 3 sections of digital media this year.
So 60 English seniors getting 1 year
Right,
English credit
right.
for both their reading and their writing credit.
Yeah. And so you're teaching 3 digital media,
Correct.
Mike, and
And 2
Wise.
film. No Wise.
Oh,
this
no
year.
Wise this year.
Just 2 film and 3 media.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Others, Ann, then Brad.
I just want to echo, it looks fantastic, so it's really exciting to see. I have one question, especially with, say, Photoshop and some of the visual stuff. There's a lot of kind of overlap with the visual arts with that, since it's kind of used there. And are you guys working with the art department at all with that, or is there any interest in that?
I would love to. I think the art department would feel the same way. I mean, we interact with them all the time. We're neighbors in the building, and all that. But we haven't made that happen. I know at one point in the year, our class came in to do some work in our studio space, I believe, at one point, just for one day. I'm not even sure what they were doing in there, but they asked if they could come in and they did some different photography work in there.
Yeah,
That's the extent of the
They
overlap.
actually had one of our English digital media students who is in our class and the photography class brought his entire class in and actually acted as a TA and operated all the equipment, helped them run all the lighting and all of that stuff. So I just had to make sure they didn't break anything. It was pretty funny to see.
Good.
Well, we can see the educate, we can see the engage, but if folks want to see empower, go see, as I got the chance to stand in the back of the studio and watch these kids do it themselves. And when they had a problem, instead of you fixing it for them, you said, well, what do you think's wrong? And got them to think about how to straighten out what it was. When I'm certain you could have done it in 3 seconds, you let them figure it out. So if you want to see what empowerment is, trusting them to do it, trusting them with the equipment, it was great to see in person. You should take the opportunity to go over and do it. And I can't believe you're out another night. I mean, you were out Thursday night with that great pitch night. The judges weren't so good, but the audience was pretty good. So.
Pat, go ahead.
Well, I guess just since Ann asked the question about art, I'll ask the question about social studies, because when you talked about documentary and going out into the community, there must be opportunities there. It sounds to me like there are more students involved than those who are actually formally enrolled in the classes. What kind of capacity do you have? How many periods a day is the lab utilized? Do you foresee a demand growing? And will we be able to marshal the resources to support this wonderful initiative, which sounds like it's just engaging so many great students? Thoughts on?
Yeah, I can say that in the past, last year, certainly, speaking of WISE, I did teach English WISE, which is another full-year course where in the spring they get to design their own project. And I had some of those students, I was also teaching media, and those WISE students were given access to the technology. So we had a student who was taking digital media, but also WISE, and she ended up using our technology to make a television show, a web show, about 4 episodes. It's pretty extraordinary. So she was not signed up for digital media, but she was using the same high-end stuff. We have worked with other teachers throughout the past 3 years on some basis, but really it does come down to assets. We want to make sure that now the 60 students, I mean, we have the technology, worked really well for 40, we're stretched a bit thin with the 60, it works. John's been doing extraordinary work with like paperwork and graphs and charts, a little bit out of my wheelhouse. So it's going fine this year with 60, but then to extend it to more, which we want to do is a little tricky in terms of them taking it home, working on a social studies project, working on a photography project. I'm down there sometimes 7th. I'll say, John is down there pretty much every period when he's not at the wood shop.
Before school and after school.
Yeah, and so a lot of students are coming in and using the technology in those periods when our students don't necessarily have the opportunity to take it out. So,
And I get approached by both staff and students to make videos for them. I made one tonight with our counseling services that will be sent out to the staff listserv. So I just sent that off to Mr. Trumbull tonight, as well as piecing together a pitch night. I was there filming that, and we luckily had 2 students volunteer to put that footage together for us, and it will be made available on our WRAD YouTube channel very soon. And I have students from outside, from music classes, art classes, or just I like making music and I borrow a microphone for the night, and but all different levels. I have students approaching me every day asking to use the equipment, and unfortunately I have to say, well, I'm sorry, but my students have first come, first serve on that, but coming at the end of the day, and if there's any equipment left over, you're more than welcome to borrow it and expand your learning.
And I will say, prior to John digitizing the sign-up procedure, so that moves much better, we had a paper system. There's a perennial slip on the chalkboard or the corkboard that was Mr. Trumbull signed on an iPod and a tripod. So that was always there. So we have also some staff members that like to sign up things for the flipped classroom presentations and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a big upgrade. John spent a lot of time with the equipment inventory. It's a seamless process now, integrated in the classroom. Kids can see what's available, what's reserved. It's all through classroom using forms and Google Sheets, so it's a really great job with that.
Going back to the sustainability aspect of what we had talked about as far as equipment replacement, the program is also growing, so we are going to need to purchase more cameras and more iPods and stuff like that to be able to sign out to the kids. And we can probably get you, based on the information that John's been collecting in terms of the sign out, just the statistics as far as how much equipment is actually getting signed out on a daily basis. With 60 kids, we have 24 iPods, and we have 3 XT cams and 1 cinematography cam.
60 kids plus my 40.
Plus Ian's other 40 students, so you can kind of do the math as far as how much equipment's available and how often it's probably being signed out and how often it's being utilized. So that is one of the struggles that we actually do deal with, is just trying to manage who has the equipment and how much access they have to it.
And how well do the students, when they actually check the equipment out, how does it come back to you? Does it come back in pretty good shape?
Yeah.
the students are very respectful of the equipment because they know there's a privilege to be able to use the equipment, and they see the value in it, and it's something that we're always constantly looking at the inventory and making sure that students can do it. And it's not something that they necessarily have to go home with it, and they know that is a privilege to have the opportunity to bring it home with them. They don't want to lose it.
E-building has become a pretty popular
E has
spot.
spread to F now.
Yeah. E and F, right?
Slowly taking over.
This is good. Do you want?
Don't we have a bunch of decommissioned iPads sitting around?
Not decommissioned yet.
Well, put them in the queue.
That might be old technology.
Yeah.
I'm old technology.
In about 10 minutes, yeah.
To that point, it's not lost on us, on me, that it's not just a tech class, and the public speaking, the presentation skills, the working as a team, the communication between anyone and everyone in order to produce a product. That's hugely beneficial to the kids as they move forward. That's what colleges are looking for. That's what businesses are looking for. And you guys have done a tremendous job in E and F building now. I think we've come a long way from a few years ago, and certainly we're very pleased that this last initiative has engaged some seniors that might not have taken an English class at all, or because they didn't need it, or it's just another class that they would have to suffer through, another book that they didn't want to read more of, but well, I'm just speaking from experience from my own child. That so, what are you reading? I mean, this would have been far more engaging for him, I think. But it's good stuff happening. Scott, everybody, Ian, you guys do a great job, John. Anything else you wish to share?
No, I mean, again, I just want to say thank you to these guys, and especially Ian, because whether you know this or not, Ian's teaching many preps this year, teaching overs in terms of his classes and also running the robotics team.
Right.
So he's really due a lot of credit for the job that he's doing this year under a tremendous amount of work and pressure. So thank you.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Code Red, so
Coming up.
all those evenings. Yeah, but we appreciate you being here tonight. Appreciate you taking over the program, really taking it to the next level. We really, I think, go take a look at it. I guess I've been in there on the other end of it, having to have the kids work the machines when I was trying to talk, which is good. But it was really very, very professional, very well done, and it's great to see the program grow.
And if you guys want to ever come into the studio, my email is jonathan.shine at the rest of that.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our electronic board up there says board vacancy, and so that also what it says on my paper copy. So we've been dealing with the question, dealt with it last time a bit at our last meeting, and on our agenda again tonight to discuss the board vacancy that we currently have on the board and what the board wishes to do from here. Talked about it a bit. Not everybody was here last time. Anyone wish to do a quick recap other than me, or any? But where we basically came down, we're not going to do an election. We basically have two choices: either leave it vacant or appoint. And basically, we're looking at the last election and being the obvious choice as to. If we were going to appoint, it would be up to the voters, and the voters had their say last election, and we would go to that next available voter, the next person that was on the list, basically. So that's where we were last time, and deferred till tonight to hopefully everyone will be here so we can have a discussion about those two options. So I'll open it up to comments, discussion, questions, motions, etc.
Wow.
Well, I'll start with a comment that I think one of the topics that came up when we were discussing whether to stay with 8 people or go back to 9 people, which is the constitution of the full board, was the fairly significant burden of committee works and liaisons that the person who has resigned sat on 2 committees, was liaison to PTA Council, was liaison to LACS, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Boynton. So
And Enfield.
and was did.
And Wegmans.
Yeah.
So as we all have a lot of committee work, and some of us who still have day jobs find it hard to take on additional representation, that it would be beneficial to have a ninth pair of hands, pair of legs, ninth head.
Certainly the other comment was that we're a 9-member board for a reason, to bring in voices from across the district, across a very diverse, wide-ranging district in our community, and we are 9. That is our makeup, and we're not 7 or 8. We've been at those lower numbers off and on. Basically, we were functionally at 7 for a while a few years ago. But we dealt with that. It's a question at this point whether what is the wish of the board, and glad to discuss. Go ahead, Sean.
I was not here last meeting, so I wasn't privy to some of the conversation. I've been in a situation now, I think, a couple of times as a board member in my 7 years of serving. And each of the prior times, I've been a fairly vocal advocate of keeping the board at 8 folks for a couple of reasons. I felt that it forced conversation in different ways than an odd number of board members do. But I also realize there's a reason why there's an odd number of board members. With that being said, this is particularly unique circumstances for me, given who the person may be in that fourth, or who the person is in that 4th spot. And I say that in large part because every year that we go through the process of year-long budgeting, right, and conversations and dialogue about what's best for kids, I'm aware that something my father told me at one point in time said, "Boy, you're not smart because you know things, you're smart because you ask good questions." And the person that we're talking about, as we all know, asks some pretty damn good questions, even if we don't understand what they are sometimes. With that being said,
Yeah, I was going to add that.
yeah, well, true story. But I think that perspective forces us to think, and I think as we find ourselves facing some daunting situations and trying to negotiate, having multiple perspectives, I think, as you indicated, and folks who ask different kinds of questions gives us all a better piece of information to make our decisions on. And so if it wasn't someone who hadn't served on the board previously, who couldn't jump into it without missing a beat, and hadn't served successfully for the past 6 years and done an admirable job, and I think probably beyond the person that left, very few people, I think, have given as much time in schools as this person. So at some point I'd be happy to make a motion to appoint.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to appoint Eldred Harris to the remainder of the term until the May election.
I second.
Second by Brad. More comments, questions?
Sean, I was just going to make the comment that when you weren't here a couple of weeks ago, when I was called upon to provide the history of, which I love to do, of
You did it well,
board
Pat.
replacements. But you did it more concisely tonight.
I thought we needed to move it on.
That in years past there had been various mechanisms for picking a board member floated. One being people from the community could apply, and my comment made 2 weeks ago was that my rationale is very much that I believe in the electoral process, and we did have an election in which there were a number of candidates, and so that the only way that I would support a 9th person would be if we returned to the electoral process and went down that list of people. That I didn't want to see a stacking of the board or plucking someone out of thin air. And so, although we have different reasons for what we're supporting, we are supporting the same action.
Yeah, and that part makes a lot of sense. I know in the years prior, some of those elections were also uncontested elections, so there was no fourth or third or fifth person to go to at that point in time, right? So, yeah, I think context is important and history is important as well.
And it's not only that it was a contested election with a bunch of candidates, lots of choice, but it wasn't that long ago. Yes.
So,
Chris?
I'm just saying, it sounds like folks are in agreement.
Well, that's what votes are
Votes
for.
count, yes.
But everyone has an opportunity to speak if they wish, so, anyone else? Students wish to weigh in? I mean, you guys are good?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We appreciate your input, though. Anything, James? You good down there? You took off the Santa Claus hat, but
Yeah, it's getting a little warm, but I don't have much else to add.
Okay. Anything else by anyone else? Motion on the floor and seconded to appoint, Eldred Harris. Now we're going to take it off the fifth person on the list, but we will be. The motion is to appoint Eldred Harris to serve out Judy Maxwell's term until the May election. And then the voters have another opportunity at that point, and the highest vote getter next election will immediately take the spot at the next board meeting or upon. So there we go. It's written out there very nicely, Jennifer. That's great. I don't even have to remember anything anymore. This will be a unique experience. Everyone can see it. To move, seconded, all in favor. Looks like all 8 of us. So Eldred, welcome. It's official. Yay. Eldred, I could say something, but as long as it's not a question to me, we're all good.
I just want to say it's been, I haven't sat on this side of the fence since 2008, 2009, when Sean and I first decided to add our skills to the mix. And this is extraordinary. Every single conversation has been about kids. I can tell you for a fact that was not the case in 2008 to 2009. From sending the bus drivers home so you get up at 3 in the morning, to acknowledging all the work you do for the kids, to the student athletes, to this incredible hands-on demonstrative project we just heard about regarding media literacy. This is the change I've seen. It's a pretty damn miraculous thing, and it's pretty cool. So getting a chance to add my voice again to this group, now knowing that we somehow have elevated students to be the prime constituents again now, I think it's time to turn our attention, like you said, to the people who support the group, right? What are we going to do with our bargaining units? How are we going to make them happy? How are we going to satisfy our need to get what we know what we want out of them, given these tight budget constraints? I'm looking forward to jumping back in and dealing with these complicated issues. I can't think of a better way to spend all this brain power, helping little people. So, woo-hoo.
Thank you, Eldred, thank you, Eldred, actually, for considering serving. It was. You didn't have to do this, and so we.
No, I did not. It's been a good break.
So we appreciated Eldred, and we'll get together with the board clerk, but Eldred will have to be sworn in again, correct?
Yes, next meeting.
At the next meeting. So Eldred, if you're around in January, at the next meeting, we'll swear Eldred back in again. Thanks, Eldred. Thanks for agreeing to serve, and thanks for everyone. So we made a decision on the board vacancy. That means that there's policies on our agenda again.
Do you want me to
It's
project
Christmas,
them or
Sean.
not?
I don't know.
Do what?
Do you want me to project the policy?
Yes, by all means, because folks may see them. I'll try to be as efficient as we can with these policies. A little bit of backstory. These policies had been in conversation since the end of last school year. That's important for me to state. They've been in conversation and dialogue since the end of last school year. So while some folks may think these policies are a response to things that take place earlier this school year, that is in fact not the case. It just indicates the rapid pace at which policy gets constructed in most school districts. So here we find ourselves, policies that began discussing in May and June of last year, we're now in December with a first reading of 4 policies. I let the board also know that there are 2 additional policies that go along with these. One is on guest speakers, but we're not ready for that one yet. And the other one is on volunteers in school, and we're debating whether or not we need to have a volunteers policy. We're checking with legal to make sure if it's a smart move or not. As folks know, depending on what language, does it actually open us up more or not? And so we'll get back to you about those 2. So what we have here are the beginning of these policies about sort of folks on our grounds. The first policy is policy 5300.64, classroom observations and visits. And this was a policy recommended primarily by administration and principals, trying to think about what is the best way to have a process to invite particular parents and caregivers to visit their child's classroom, and what are the ways in which we would have a set of procedures in place to make that happen. So Matt, please tell Dr. Landau if I'm missing anything. I know we had probably 5, 6 policy meetings about this. Principals were in attendance probably for 4 of them.
Yep. Yeah, and we've actually had a lot of public at those meetings.
We did.
Too. I just wanted to briefly say to the board to frame all of these policies. As the district is looking for ways to be a more inclusive district, we've had a lot of focused conversations with principals, with equity mentors, with other staff members about making part of being inclusive is having a welcoming environment for students and for their families. So these policies are in place to add some structure to that and some guidelines which we currently don't have. The other thing, I'm just going to briefly illustrate the need for this policy right in front of you. This morning, I brought a very wet 4-year-old to South Hill and thought that it was okay to just sort of leave him there and let, I didn't really think this, but I wasn't really thinking. And it was shared by both my son and his teacher, like he's going to need some dry things to get through the rest of the day. Long story short, I came back a few minutes later with these things. The office, they waved me down in the classroom. I gave my son all the dry stuff. And my son's classroom is a really amazing place with amazing kids and amazing adults working with him. And I could have literally just grabbed a chair and sat and watched because it's totally cool. But that's disruptive. That's not planned. That's not my right to do that. We want to welcome folks to visit classrooms, but we want to put a procedure and a policy in place that there's some structure to do that. And so that's what this work is here. So as Sean said, this is the work of, a lot of this is taken from NYSBA. We got some advice from our attorneys, but a lot of it's come from administrators in the district too. So, so any questions we have going forward, just let me know.
And there's also language in here that will assist us for the few folks who are persistent about visiting their class. Is that an appropriate way of saying it?
Yeah, and also with that, and I think this was some of our best conversations at the committee level, the gist of this policy is a person has to have permission to visit a class. They have to go through the principal or school administrator who then works with the teacher. Sean and other folks at the meetings would bring up, we don't want to have a situation where a school is barring somebody from visiting their child's class. There are really important reasons why a parent or caregiver would want to see a class. So there's some clauses in these policies that I don't think this would happen, but would allow a parent or caregiver to appeal to a superintendent or designee to visit a class. Our goal is not to bar people from this. Our goal again is to just add basically a set of procedures and a framework for doing this. We do need it.
I think the idea is also to give teachers a little bit of tools and some support when dealing with situations, right? So they can point to policy to be able to back them, while making sure we're giving parents and caregivers a process by which they have a right to see their children's class, right? So how do we balance those?
Yeah, I guess I have not spent nearly as much time as you guys have been thinking about it, but so it's kind of more a first impression.
Yep.
So my first impression when I read it was kind of more of a question. It's like, is the ability for a parent or caregiver to visit a class a right or privilege? And my first impression upon reading this was that the parent, it was like considered a privilege. And so there was like the criterion that were chosen. It's like, well, these would be the reasons you would be permitted, which is a little bit different than saying, well, these would be the reasons you would be denied. So it's just a kind of first impression. I don't really know how I even feel about that. It's just like, you know, from a parent perspective, I'm not sure yet.
I think going back to 22 plus years of having a child in the district and being involved in the PTA, knowing a lot of other parents, I would say that while one would say, oh yes, of course, you know, you should be able to visit your child's classroom, I think most well-meaning parents don't necessarily realize how disruptive that can be to the instructional day, and that having to accommodate a visitor and deal with a visitor can really throw off the dynamics of teachers focusing on their children, their students. And I've seen over the years, I've seen parents who, for instance, I'm thinking of one parent who years ago mentored student teachers from IC, but actually was a very, very overprotective parent and used that presence in the building to be barging into her child's classroom all the time. And, you know, not necessarily meaning to be disruptive, but really, really seriously, if that happens in a classroom, it can end up undermining the instruction for every child in that classroom without the parent even realizing they know what they're doing. And I think it's not necessarily the right of every parent to be in their child's classroom every day. That that there are real strong pedagogical reasons why the child should be building that bond with the teacher without the parent, and I'm going to say that even has to happen at the college level sometimes.
Helicopters, yes. Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I hope I didn't miss this in the beginning, but besides the right and the privilege, the need for consistency and structure throughout the whole school district. I think that is what's really important here.
And this is not applied to school volunteers, right? Or parents who come to volunteer in their child's classroom. This is the parent who shows up the morning of and says, I want to sit for 3 hours and observe my child. And the idea is saying, no, there should be some sort of advance notice, some sort of process.
Yeah.
Right? And my concern was that very point about a right of privilege. Like, I was a parent at one point in time, probably described as being a little difficult. Right, so then you're just going to tell me no, just can you believe it, Chris? I know. I can't talk about it.
We're pretty shy.
But so can you tell me no just on principle, just because you don't want me to? Not principal, right? But right. So the issue was how do we sort of run those same ideas? Let me also say again, the purpose, one of the main priorities of a board beyond budget is policy. And so while without question our policy has to be written to make sure that we're being as inviting and inclusive as possible, our primary goal is to make sure that our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, our ESPs, everyone has the resources they need. And so sometimes I even struggle with that, but it doesn't always, it may not be what I want as a parent, but it may mean what we need as a district and as an organization. And we're always trying to balance those two things because they're not always in agreement.
And Sean, as you always say, we're not writing a policy for the specific school at this period of time because there may be, for whatever reason.
That's
These
right.
are policies for
That's right.
multiple years across multiple buildings with very, very different circumstances on a daily basis. Something consistent that we and the staff and everyone can look through. Okay, what is the district's policy? And Sean, it's up to us to set that policy.
Absolutely.
And Jen, you had.
What he just said.
Whichever.
I think it's really great to have something in place that is just solid, and what Chris said, that it's just something to refer to, and if a teacher feels uncomfortable at any time, they have some paper and some support to go to say this is how we do it, and they don't have to sort of navigate that awkward or difficult situation on their own. They have this.
And we have very astute teachers. When my son was going through Enfield Elementary School, my wife, who was wanting to be involved, and so it was, that's great. You can volunteer. This is your time. Come in and volunteer. You want to be involved. We're not going to say you can't come in and visit, but here's the mechanism by which you can be in the classroom. I need you at this time, and you're going to be working with other kids, not your son, but you can be in the classroom, and there's a mechanism for that. And so it's volunteer one day a week, whatever. But and that's a great way to be a part of your child's classroom.
So remember, we're at a first reading, so if there are significant, I'm going to move it in a minute, or hopefully move it in a minute. If there are significant questions, small edits, etc., they'll be back on the next policy committee meeting to discuss in committee, then back to the full board for a second reading before anything gets passed. And so we still have time to make tweaks, adjustments, etc. With that being said, I move policy 5300.64 classroom observations and visits for a first reading.
Second.
Second by Moore. Any other questions? All those in favor? That's everyone.
Great. I'm going to begin by moving the next one. I move policy 5300.65, visitors to the school, for a first reading.
Second. Go ahead.
Pat, you got it.
It's Christmas.
So, as folks may imagine, given some of the incidents that have taken place on Boynton and the high school campus over the past month, we had some conversation about visitors to the school policy, particular unrequested visitors or unofficial visitors or uninvited visitors. But this policy, in essence, tries to outline some basic ideas about what happens with visitors to our campus, including, no, that's the next policy. I thought there were regulations here, but there's the next one.
No, that's 70 has the regulation.
Oh, there's no regulations.
Go ahead, Brett.
Just one question. Are board members visitors? Or are we regular staff?
And that should be clarified. In one of our policies, I think it's the next one, visitors are considered to be all folks, staff, employees, students, etc. For the purpose of the policy, everyone is considered to be a visitor. We may have to clarify that here.
Staff included.
That's the way in which.
Well, no, this one, anyone who is not a regular staff member or student of the school will be considered a visitor.
So my question is, Sean, are you a visitor or are you a staff member?
We will take that up between a first reading and second reading.
Thank you.
I'm going to say we have district badges that we can wear, so.
Yeah, we
But
have.
it's still you go to the front office, you sign in and check in. Typically, you would let the principal know you're going to stop by that day.
I would say this, as I'm sure Brad probably asked this question for a reason, I'm quite sure there's a legal reasoning already decided, so there's no need for us to pontificate. The BSNK will tell us pretty clearly if we're visitors or not. I'm quite sure. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. It's volunteer.
Don't move without signing in, no.
You should.
Yeah.
They make me,
Yeah. They're very strict, to everybody. You just can't let anybody in.
We did have conversation in this policy about the idea of requesting photo identification. And part of that conversation was about realizing that not everyone in our community has access to photo identification or the ability to obtain photo identification and still has children within our schools, and so how do we negotiate that? So we didn't make it a requirement, but we wrote language would be asked to present. So there's an expectation.
Be expected to present.
Be expected to present. There's an expectation of photo identification, but it's not a requirement is the way in which we tried to do that. Trying to be sensitive to the fact that some folks may not always have photo ID.
Yeah, and one of the points I brought up in talking about this was, I was thinking about when I have proctored SATs, kids are supposed to have photo identification, but if they don't, if somebody who's there for the testing, some adult, can identify the person, then they're let in. So I was thinking this could be the sort of situation where somebody doesn't have photo identification but can be identified by a staff member, and we wouldn't get
reasonable, right?
picky about it.
Was that part of the photo ID that also kind of part of, like, borrowed from like another district, like with the
This
desire?
came from a template.
A template.
Yeah.
And,
The desire for photo ID?
yeah, how necessary is it, I guess, is my question.
That's a good question.
Because it could be a deterrent also easily, especially schools, like neighborhood schools where people walk to school. Oftentimes people don't bring their bags, they wouldn't even have it with them, so.
So that was part of our conversation as well, and at the end of the day, we said we're talking about people's babies, and at the very least, as a form of some sort of check to ask people to present photo identification was not an unreasonable request to go into a school.
Yep.
Right, so I'm with you, but it's a school, right? So, if it was a public library, then I would think differently, but it's a school. That's where we ended up at saying.
And if they have some business, they can go to, the main office, oh, I don't have my ID, but will you deliver this to some kid or whatever, but they don't get past the main office unless they...
To get their visitor badge.
Right.
So, and we can...
They're known to someone or identified to someone by photo ID.
And again, this is part of what we do this in public session, so folks have questions, comments, want us to research, we'll take a look at these and see at the next policy meeting.
Yeah, because I can understand the logic of asking for it, for sure, because these are kids, and you want to make sure, it's not some kind of custody kind of thing, or, all kinds of things like that. I mean, that part of me understands the logic of it, and then there's another part of me that says, a lot of people don't carry their ID, we don't even ask for ID for like voting, and it's like people are in and out, it's like, I don't know, it seems a barrier, and I'm wondering that could be, you want parents to be involved in your school, and I mean, even say like, there's parent-teacher conferences where parents supposed to be bringing their ID for that, I don't know, it just seems like that could be.
So, right, so difference between practice, I'm actually thinking, so I appreciate what you're saying about folks who walk, I'm actually thinking of some of our migrant families who don't have photo identification, right? So, and won't be able to get photo identification in that regard. So I understand that it could be a barrier in that regard, that part I get. I don't think we're expecting for families who go to neighborhood schools that most times, folks, if they're known to the office, aren't going to be asked to show photo ID, they're going to know who they are, right? But the question of being able to get a visitor's badge and be able to walk through our halls seems to be that we should know who you are. Right? We should have some indication of who's in the building. And not everyone, as we've been finding out and having conversations with our, what are we calling these things, Brad? Vulnerability and community surveys, Amanda, what we're calling them, right?
Vulnerability.
Right, so part of the idea is that some folks have easy access, some folks can walk into our buildings and not be questioned. Other folks, the minute they step through the door, get 3 or 4 people asking them what they're doing there. And so, it depends on sort of the luck of the draw who gets to walk through, but sort of an expectation that everyone should be able to identify themselves just seemed to be a smart thing for the time being. Again, we'll discuss it at the policy meeting, and we can ask legal as well. I don't think there's a legal, this is actually a local policy, right? So there's no legal mandate that we have to have this. This is what we choose to do.
There may be a way to word that when we take it back to committee that provides just a little bit of the flexibility that Sean was talking about. But I do know, from being on the principal side for many years, asking for ID has probably saved some kids that were under my care from being in some circumstances that we did not want them to be in. So there's a reason for that, and it was, they shouldn't be going with a person, and our ability to check their ID helped us deal with that. So essentially, that's why we need at least the ability to ask for it. But to not be like carting like someone who's dropping their kid off every day, that doesn't really make sense. But a school office staff needs the ability to do this.
And part of the discussion, and part of this is a practical consideration. If we're having a visitor's policy and we put in no mechanism to verify the identity of the visitors, why even bother? Really?
Yeah, that's...
I'm Emmett Smith. Well, no, you're not. You're Pat Wadsworth.
You don't have 20 touchdowns.
She has no idea.
She aspires to it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you're going to contact the public and let them know that this policy is coming into action, so they don't come in unprepared to say suddenly you have to show ID without them realizing it's happened.
So I think a couple of things. One, we know that there's a fine line between what gets put on paper and what gets put into practice, right? So we write policy hoping that people start using this in the practice, and that's what we're going to be doing. I imagine we'll be going through all of our school building personnel. That's another idea. But I would dare say, I'm trying to be respectful, I would not assume too many folks should go to a school to visit and not think that they wouldn't be asked to prove who they were, especially if you're a visitor to a building in some regards. And so our goal isn't to make this to turn anybody away, right? The goal is to start giving staff the ability to ask the question for photo identification, right? That's more the idea behind it. The holdup for our volunteers policy is whether or not we should have a volunteer application, right? Should people actually have to apply to volunteer? So we're thinking about how much information do we take, what's the risk, what's the liability, what's the responsibility in some regards, but also being as inviting to the public as we possibly can, parents, caregivers, community folks, etc.
Okay.
So will there be be able to think about what that outreach looks like to let folks know that this is not the case? We'll do more thought about that.
Yeah, and I was thinking that the same goes for the visits to classrooms.
Right.
And I could see that coming from principals for, parents, caregivers, that this is what the policy is going to be.
A sign posted at the front of each office. And then, the vast majority of people who arrive at one of our schools are going to have some kind of photo ID.
And this is a first reading.
This is a first reading.
And it has been moved. Any other questions right now? Opportunity to provide more comment over the next few weeks, I'm sure. Are we good, Sean? Can we vote?
Yep.
We, all in favor of that first reading? That's everyone, and Jen stepped out of the room. So that's 7-0.
The next two I'm going to do in tandem. It's policy 5300.7 and policy 5300.7-R, public conduct on school property. Most of this is basically lifted directly from our current code of conduct. We did make some tweaks, which will then have to be reflected in next year's code of conduct. But for the most part, this policy is as currently written. There are two changes. I hope the board will both appreciate. One of the things that were banned from school property was graffiti, and as someone who teaches hip hop, I thought that was an unfair characterization of graffiti, so we said defacing or drawing on public property, but now I said graffiti, that part was changed. Leave it alone, Chris Malcolm. Yes.
How old? I just want to know how old the original policy was.
I don't know how old the original policy was. It was a long time ago. And then there was another question about who's able to carry guns on campus.
Yeah.
That there are a certain number of people, according to New York State law, who have permits for concealment on school property. We're still waiting for BS&K to find out exactly who that is, because we just want to know.
Board members?
Right, board members. Right. So that was a little interesting to find out. And then lastly, we did some conversation about changing the language about tobacco use, in particular trying to update our language for things like e-cigarettes and the like. And then what we did was split this policy, which is originally into a policy and regulation, in which the regulation just basically outlines how a principal or school official can ask uninvited guests or people who are breaking the code of conduct to leave the facilities, leave the campus. So that's what the regulation is. It's basically a step-by-step procedure to give folks ways to ask folks to leave, including the possibility of calling law enforcement if necessary. So those are those two policies. A good portion of it, I should say, was not just lifted from Code of Conduct, but lifted from this book.
Craig, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that was ours.
Number 5, is that lifted right out of our code of conduct? Intimidate, harass, discriminate against.
I think it is.
So I can harass so long as it doesn't fit one of your categories.
Well, right, and this is...
But yeah, you answered.
The basis
You're right.
of-
Why wouldn't you just say intimidate, harass, or discriminate against any person, period?
Because these are protected classes, And the
And they're
reality is,
protected classes, whether I put them in this policy or not.
True story.
But by having listed them, I've now said these are the only reasons that you're guilty of intimidation, harassment, or discrimination.
It's a long list.
Intimidate
It's a
you on the
long list,
basis.
Brad.
Weeks in there.
Oh, trust me, there's a lawyer in town who can come up with at least one exception to that list.
Do we know?
I can check.
I think we do.
I hear exactly what you're saying.
Right? Right? So
I know, I hear
now
what
you
you're
put in the
saying.
regulation, now we've ejected somebody, and now they're back here and say, well, I didn't do any of those. I harassed because of something else, and that's not against your rules. Well, that's what it says.
Personal animus.
Yeah, well, but that's what it says.
Could we add personal animus?
Perceived intelligence of the.
And for those folks who are watching at home, this is exactly how our policy
predicting where we're going to be on the other end. We passed this, now we're
As
on
the
the other end.
language reads, it reads exactly like this. You are correct. I will bring it up, and I'm in support of I'm in direct support of what you're saying.
I would just put a period.
Period after. I get it. I agree. I got a note for number 5.
Thanks.
I'm with you on that.
I don't think so. Moved.
Oh, okay.
No. Did I move them?
No, I think so.
I moved policy 5300.7 and policy 5300.7-R for a first reading.
Second.
Lawyer jumped in. All right, very good. Just want to make sure that was in the in our procedure. Anything else on who we can harass or not? Are we? Anything else, Sean? You want to comment on here?
Not in this one.
On the
Chris, go ahead and push back. Go ahead.
No. It just says inform the individual that the conduct is prohibited. We have to specify what that conduct is, correct?
You're talking about the regulation, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any conduct that is in the policy.
In the
Yeah.
engaged and prohibited conduct.
So you're saying this should say to inform the individual of what the conduct is that's prohibited?
Inform the individual that the conduct is prohibited. What is prohibited?
Well, the previous policy.
Of the previous policy.
It's prohibited conduct, yeah.
Inform the individual that they're engaging in prohibited conduct. Would that solve the situation?
Yeah, I think that's
I
right.
think so.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're good, Chris. I think it's good.
Thank you. Hey, Maurice said it was good.
And I didn't even make you read a book you didn't want to read.
That was me.
Wow.
Well timed.
All right, so Chris Malcolm, if I heard you correctly, the recommendation was for item A to be very specific about which conduct is prohibited.
No, I think you just say, inform the individual, what did you say, Chris? It was good.
Well,
That
that they're engaging in prohibited conduct.
that they are engaging in, that they are,
Yeah.
that he, she is engaging in prohibited.
What did I do? What did I do?
I have it on the list for item A. We'll take care of it during the next meeting.
I just want Chris to be happy.
I was always told to stop doing that. And I was like, what, me?
I know. What did I do?
What did I do? What did I do?
That is funny. That's who's my running policy. That is funny. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. That's good.
It's not my fault he ran into me and fell down. I've been saying that for a long time. I didn't do anything. Sean, are we good? Policies?
We're open to feedback, suggestions. We've had a couple nice catches so far. If there's other ones, let us know.
And policy committee is actually fun, or it is interesting.
You say this every time we talk about policy.
We were going to policy there for a while. It was we were dealing with some stuff.
We're in the clear. We go. Don't
So good. All in favor of the first reading, because that's pretty easy to be in favor of the first reading. That's everyone.
Send us suggestions our way, please. We'll bring second reading to you soon.
And we'll see policies on the agenda going forward. That'll be great.
We will.
Always.
We're almost done with the 4,000 series, folks. We're coming for you.
Well, all right. Any other business by any board members? Upcoming dates of importance, I would think Christmas and New Year's, but that's just two off the top of my head. But
7 committee meetings and 2 voting board meetings in January.
it's a long month.
Busy.
Yeah.
But cranking up after the New Year, obviously.
Nothing else to do, it'll be cool.
Anything else, Dr. Brown? Happy holidays, Dr. Brown. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for everybody showing up tonight. And without objection, we're adjourned.
It's past my bedtime.